The corridor echoed with the sharp slap of a heavy boot against the wall. A cold, mocking laugh reverberated down the staircase, mixing with the metallic scent of old pipes and the acrid fear that clung to the school like mildew. Miss Riley Carter never thought her first semester teaching at Crestview High would end here, her back pressed against the chipped green paint, the taste of blood in her mouth, and for sneering boys blocking every way out. Just a month earlier, she'd been full of hope, 24 years old, fresh out of her graduate program in education. She had arrived determined to make a difference in a school the district had long since given up on. Crestview High had a reputation. Kids called it the jungle because that was how it felt. Predators roaming the halls, preying on anyone too kind or too weak to fight back. She'd been warned. Don't engage too much, her mentor had said. These kids respect only fear. But Riley had never believed fear built anything worth keeping. So she'd shown them respect, listened more than she spoke, offered extra help after class, and for most of the kids, that had been enough. Most not. For Nathan Green and his crew, Josh Brent, and Tyson, for boys with the same empty eyes she'd seen in too many broken places. They were 17 but carried themselves like men who'd already decided the world was theirs to break. Over the weeks they'd tested her first with insults muttered just out of earshot, then with chairs scraped deliberately across the floor to interrupt her lessons. Each time she'd stood her ground, each time their amusement grew. The final week of term was supposed to be a short reprieve to 3 days of exams, then winter break. She'd thought maybe they'd leave her alone, but today, as the last bell rang and the hallway emptied, she felt a ripple in the air that made her stomach twist. She had stayed behind to pack away test papers. The principal was in a meeting, the security guard out front dealing with her parents, car stuck in the snow, and she'd known that when she turned to the door, they would be waiting. Nathan's smirk was a cold thing, humorless and sharp. Miss Carter, he drawled, stepping forward. You think you're better than us? Her throat closed. She took a step back, hands coming up in a calming gesture. Nathan, I don't want trouble. That's the thing, Josh sneered, blocking the doorway. You don't get to want anything. You embarrassed us in front of the whole class when you called us out for cheating. You humiliated us, Tyson added, voice a low growl. Brent reached out and flicked a strand of her hair as if she were an exhibit. You gonna cry now, teacher? She swallowed. Slowly she set the stack of papers on the desk behind her. You have a choice. You can walk away or you can do something you'll regret. Brent laughed. What? You gonna call the cops? You think anybody cares what happens to you in this dump? And then Nathan's hand shot out and shoved her hard against the wall. Her shoulder cracked against the plaster, pain flaring bright behind her eyes. She didn't scream. She wouldn't give them that. Instead she took one deep breath and let her training rise from where she had buried it years ago. Riley hadn't grown up in safe neighborhoods. Her mother, a nurse who worked night shifts, had insisted her daughter take self-defense classes as soon as she could walk home alone. By 15, Riley had earned a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, a yellow in Krav Maga. She hadn't used any of it in years, not since she'd decided she wanted to teach, not fight. But tonight, it would save her life. Last chance, she whispered, voice steady even as her heart thundered. Nathan's lip curled. No, yours. The shove this time was aimed at her chest, hard enough to drive her backward, and in that instant, she felt her heel catch the top stair. Time slowed. She saw the gloating in their faces, the expectation that she would tumble down the stairs, maybe break her neck, maybe just shatter her dignity beyond repair. But she twisted, body low, and let gravity help her. Instead of falling, she rolled. Her left hand shot out, palm flat against the railing, her right leg swinging in a vicious arc that caught Brent square behind the knee. He let out a shocked yelp as he pitched forward, crashing face first onto the steps below. Chaos erupted. Josh lunged for her, big hands reaching for her shoulders. She sidestepped and drove the edge of her palm into the soft place between his ribs. He gasped, eyes wide, and she brought her knee up fast, precise, slamming it into his sternum. He folded, gagging. Tyson was screaming something she barely heard. He swung a fist at her head, but she ducked beneath it, her braid whipping over her shoulder. 1, 2, 3. She snapped her elbow into his solar plexus, then pivoted and caught the side of his face with her palm. He staggered, blood blooming from his nose. Nathan was the last. His shock had frozen him in place, just long enough for her to straighten, chest heaving. Think for the first time, she saw uncertainty in his eyes. Get out of my way, she said, voice low and calm. He didn't move. She advanced, never breaking eye contact. Move, she repeated. Maybe, he thought, he could still salvage the upper hand. Maybe he just couldn't stand the idea of backing down. Either way, his hand darted to his pocket and she saw the glint of something small and metallic, a folding blade. The world contracted to a single point of focus. Her mother's voice in her mind never let them close the distance. Her body moved before her thoughts could catch up. She stepped in, grabbed his wrist, and twisted hard enough to make the tendons scream. The knife clattered to the floor. She kicked it down the stairs, out of reach, then drove her heel into his shin. He crumpled asterisk for a moment. There was no sound but the ragged wheeze of 4 boys who'd thought she was prey. Asterisk slowly. She bent to pick up her papers. Her hands shook, but she forced them steady. When she looked up, she saw Brent groaning halfway down the stairs, clutching his face. Tyson crawled to check on him. Josh was retching against the wall. Asterisk. Nathan lay curled at her feet, breathing fast and shallow. His eyes were wide, no longer blank, full of something she recognized. Fear. She spoke evenly, her voice echoing in the stairwell. You will never lay a hand on me or any student again. If you do, I will press charges. If you ever bring a weapon into this school, I will make sure you're arrested. You understand me? He swallowed, nodding without looking up. She turned and walked calmly down the steps, past Brent's broken nose and Josh's heaving shoulders. Only when she reached the landing did she let herself lean against the railing, her whole body trembling. Asterisk. You're okay, she told herself, over and over. You're okay. Asterisk. She wasn't sure how long she stood there. When she finally made her way to the main office, the security guard had returned. His eyes went wide as he took in her bruised face, and the boys trailing behind, limping and bleeding. Asterisk. I want this documented, she said quietly. Every detail. Asterisk. The hours that followed blurred together, statements to the police, phone calls to parents, EMTs coming to check on all of them. The principal looked horrified, but she saw the relief in his face, too. Relief that it was over and that it hadn't ended worse. Asterisk. The boys were suspended pending a board hearing. Nathan's knife was bagged as evidence. Asterisk. That night, as she sat in her tiny kitchen with an ice pack against her cheek, Riley let herself cry. Not out of fear, though it had been there, sharp and sour, but because she'd wanted so badly to believe her compassion alone could fix everything. But it couldn't sometimes. You had to fight. Asterisk. The next morning, she woke with her decision already made. She wasn't going to leave Crestview. She wasn't going to let 4 broken boys chase her away from the kids who still needed her. Asterisk. When she walked back into her classroom the following Monday, a hush fell over the students. News had spread faster than fire. She could see it in their eyes, a mix of awe, disbelief, and a flicker of respect that hadn't been there before. Asterisk. One of her quietest students, Maria, raised her hand hesitantly as the bell rang. Asterisk. Miss Carter. Asterisk. Yes. Asterisk. Maria looked down, twisting the strap of her backpack. Is it true you beat up 4 seniors? Asterisk. Riley sighed, pressing her fingers to her temple. I defended myself, Maria. That's different. Asterisk. But you're okay. Asterisk. Riley looked out at the room, at all the uncertain, vulnerable faces. She thought about her bruises, the fear, the ugly weight of violence, and how in the end it had been necessary. Asterisk. I'm okay, she said softly. And you're safe. That's what matters. Asterisk. For the first time since she'd arrived, the class sat in complete, reverent silence. Asterisk. Over the next weeks, she noticed something change when she walked down the halls. Students she barely knew would straighten up a little taller. The graffiti on her classroom door disappeared. The jeers quieted. Respect. It wasn't the way she'd wanted to earn it, but it was real. Asterisk. And Nathan Green, once the self-appointed king of Crestview, never returned to her classroom. She knew he'd been ordered into counseling, and she, or hoped, deep down, that somewhere in him was still a boy who could be reached. Asterisk. But that wasn't her battle anymore. Asterisk. Her job was to teach the ones who were ready to learn, to show them that strength could look like a raised hand in class, or a quiet word of kindness, and sometimes, when there was no other way, it could look like standing your ground against everything that wanted to break you. Asterisk. Years later, when people asked her how she'd survived teaching in the jungle, she never talked about the bruises or the fear.